Welcome to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. I'm Payton North.
And I'm Dennis Hackett.
And we will be your hosts for a minute for this week's episode. So Dennis and I this week are teeing up the episode. We're going to have a little banter, a little chit-chat, and then we're going to have a really great interview that Chris Mazza is doing with Rep. Angelo Puppolo.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the plan for today. Our scheduling was a little off this week, and Payton is also here to make a little announcement.
Yeah, exciting news, but sad news. It's a little bittersweet, but I am leaving the Reminder after a great 8-year run. I have a new job at the DA's office as the communications director that I'm starting in just a couple weeks. So January 31st is my last day with the Reminder.
Yeah, it's crazy to think that, I don't know what to say.
Crazy. It's crazy to think.
It's crazy. Yeah, crazy to think that this is the end.
It is the end. I know, it's so weird. I think a lot about when Chris Mazza left the Reminder in 2018, end of 2017. And he had made a post talking about how this was possibly the end of his career in journalism. And then, of course, as the story goes, we wound up buying the Westfield News, and he was working for the Westfield News at the time, so we got him right back, which was awesome. So I definitely don't want to say this is the end of my journalism career. It could be. It also very well could not be. And it's almost a little sad to think that it could be the end of the journalism career, so I'm not putting that energy out there. Yeah. But I am excited for this new opportunity. I'm going to learn a lot. I obviously haven't done anything in the legal world, really, so this is very exciting, and it seems like they have a great team over there. So I'm looking forward to it, but it is very weird. I didn't picture staying with the Reminder for 8 years when I started working here, but of course, here we are.
Yeah.
Was able to move up a bunch, but it's strange. It's very strange.
Yeah, I mean, you've called this place home through so much, so it's...
Yeah.
Gotta be weird to. We've moved offices, we've downsized, we've had expansions,
so many expansions, yeah.
All kinds of stuff happen, and you were kind of at the center of a lot of it. So.
Yeah, saw us through a lot of changes, and then when Mike retired our former executive editor Mike Dobbs, when he retired in was that?
That was 22.
Yeah, that was 22.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy. It was amazing to take over for him, and we were in such a good spot. And we've still expanded from there. We've downsized a bit from there, just dealing with the financial struggles that everyone's going through right now. But it's been really fun and a very rewarding work, and I definitely owe so much to Reminder management for constantly believing in me and just really pushing me to do more and learn. And I wrote an opinion piece that'll be it will, by the time this is out, it'll have been in last week's papers. But the piece I really wrote about all the good memories, the really fun memories, but really I have just grown and changed so much as a person here, and naturally, of course, that happens. I mean, I started working here when I was 21, so of course, and now I'm about to turn 30, so there was so much life changes personally, but I really feel like if I hadn't had this job or been in this field, I would be a totally different person. I'm so much more outgoing than I was. I feel like when I first started, I would walk into a room and just be like wanting to crawl into my shell and so uncomfortable because it's intimidating. You're walking in a room with a bunch of elected officials or important business leaders, and you're this like 21, 22-year-old who just graduated college and doesn't really know what they're doing, but are trying really hard. And so now I feel like I walk into those rooms and I know everyone and I am peers with some of these people, which is cool and odd, but it's been nice to look back a little bit and just see how much I've changed and how much I personally have benefited from this job. And I think a lot of people can say the same thing.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can definitely agree with that. Yeah, I mean, you're obviously going to be so missed.
Yeah, I know. It's sad. It's weird. I still haven't, I've got 7 days left, 7 work days left, and I haven't touched anything on my walls yet or taken down anything. And I have the boxes in the back of my car, and I very well could, But I'm just like, oh, I don't know, because then I have to work with bare walls, and that's sad.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I might not do anything to my office until maybe like Monday. Save it for Monday. But luckily, I did a lot of the preparation. I did kind of know around December that I would be leaving.
Yeah.
So I did a lot of prep work for you all at that point.
Yeah.
So
yeah, for anyone listening, Payton has done an unbelievable job trying to prepare us for her departure.
thanks.
She's really just like, if there's anything that's like a question or anything, she's thought of it, or in discussions with us, it's come up. So we've been really prepared to move forward.
Yeah.
Even if we're not necessarily personally.
Not mentally prepared for it, but
prepared.
Everything else, yeah, I've tried to be as organized as possible and just write down anything that I could possibly write down. I think everyone will not miss my long emails of like lists or schedules, or just like, I'm very detailed. I'm extremely detailed, and half the time I write an email and I'm like, did anybody make it halfway through this thing because it's so long? But I just try to be as organized and as clear as possible. So that's what I've done in all my preparations to getting out of here. But like I said to everyone, I'm obviously still going to be here. I'm still going to be in Western Mass. I'll still be available if anyone has questions or wants to run something by me, or, hey, where'd you put this thing, or where is this saved? I'm obviously available for all of those conversations. But it's strange.
Yeah.
At first I thought, I had said to our boss, I said, if you need me to stay on for a little bit after work, some hours, if you need help with anything, like I can of course do that and help fill in the gaps until there's someone new. And then I kind of realized, well, that'd be probably a massive conflict of interest. So I actually don't know that I can do that.
Yeah.
So at least for until I start, if I'll be available if I'm needed. But I think everybody is so competent here. You guys are all great at what you do. It's going to be just like I'm on vacation, and we all make do when I'm on vacation.
Yeah,
so,
we certainly do.
But I will say, I am so excited to go on vacation. I'm going on vacation for like 5 days, and it'll be the first vacation since 2018 that I haven't had to work.
That's going to be awesome.
Like, I always have my email going. I have my Teams going when I'm on vacation. Like, yes, I will mute the notifications, but I still check them at least twice a day, was forwarding emails, answering something if I had to answer it. So it's going to be really, really weird to not take a laptop with me and or, like, on my last day, deleting Teams and Outlook on my phone. What do you mean? Like, those are... we were talking the other day about TikTok, like our muscle memory was just like clicking on the TikTok app, even though it didn't work for like 12 hours. That's me with Outlook and Teams. I'm like, my muscle memory is like, what did I get for emails? What did I get for Teams messages? So it's going to be definitely it'll be weird to not have the app in that place on my home screen. But I'm excited. I'm really excited to just kind of get a break for a minute.
Yeah. I think you definitely need it too. That's what I think I mentioned it to you the other day, but the fact that you have a week off for your vacation, then you're also just not starting work right away is definitely going to be a good benefit to you, I feel like. Because for context for our listeners, like the last couple of months has been a ton of groundwork that Payton has done behind the scenes. And
in secret.
She desperately needs this kind of break.
Unfortunately for everyone, yes, in secret. It was very hard because I almost multiple times alluded to something or said things like, I want to tell you guys what's going on. And I think to a degree, maybe there was some sort of understanding of that. But it really felt like it was time for me at this point. But it was really difficult to keep that because we all talk about so much. And I was doing so much organization that would benefit everyone all the time. So I wanted to be like, hey, draw your attention to this folder where I put all of this stuff. But then I didn't want anyone to freak out and be like, wait, you were on a Sunday spending the whole day doing a lot of stuff that feels not really necessary right now. So I was just like, I just had stuff going on, figured I'd just throw it all on there. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
I mean,
all I can say is I don't know. But it's strange.
I mean, I had a kind of an idea. I mean, we've talked about these kinds of things, obviously, because we have a good relationship. But so I was just like not prepared for when, but knew it was inevitability. Inevitability.
Really not the best. Not that it's not the best timing. There's never a good time. I would have liked to see us a little bit into the new year just because we had a lot of changes at the end of last year. And I would have liked to have had a bit more time, but end of the day,
I feel like we're kind of as stable as we can be,
right?
Given not necessarily like what's going on within these walls, but in the environment and the way businesses are right now.
Absolutely. And I think that again, you're also competent. You're going to get the job done with or without an executive editor for a little bit of time, depending on what the company does. But it looks like for anyone who's listening and might want to apply, you never know. We might have
You have any executive editor experience?
Yeah, come on and apply. They're soliciting internal and external, so anyone is welcome to apply. And of course, whoever does get this job, if they would like to chit-chat with me or have any bouncing ideas off of me or whatever, I'm happy to be supportive of that for whomever's sitting in my seat.
And I can confidently say you will not have competition from me.
Yeah, well, it's not competition from me. Oh, you're saying
from
they
me,
will not have.
From
yes,
me.
I understand.
I will not
I
be.
understand. Yeah, Dennis
Dennis
is opting to not apply, which I can certainly understand. It's a tough job. It's a fun job. It's a great team, but it's definitely a stressful job. Just dealing with in any job when you have people who are working for you. There's always a lot of stress when you're managing people.
Yeah,
it's journalism is journalism. Yes, it's a stressful job sometimes because of the nature of what we do, but the management of people is really the X factor in this job. We have a pretty decent sized team, and I love them, so I'm sad. I'm gonna really miss it, but I'll still be around.
Yeah, and you'll still be hearing from at least me.
I know I'll be hearing from everyone, I'm sure. So. Yeah, but that's really all we had to talk. Well, what about you, Dennis? What's new? We can talk about you too.
I mean,
that's my announcement.
Before we move off that topic, I did just want to thank Payton for everything she's done for me and us. But
very kind.
Yeah. I like Payton talked about how this job has transformed her. It's kind of transformed me too, and I
for sure
don't think I would have transformed the way that I did without Payton here.
Oh,
so
thanks. Crazy. Nah, I don't want to talk about.
No, we're fine.
Anymore.
We're fine. We're gonna see each other tons, and things are gonna be great.
Yeah, I don't want to. I can't. With so many people have sent me the nicest messages. Our freelance team. Oh my god, and I can take a compliment, but the level of like, you've been so supportive of me, you've done this, and it's just the kindest, nicest messages, and you don't really see, when you're doing anything, you never really automatically see your impact.
Yeah.
And it was just so heartwarming and unexpected, the things that some of our freelancers were saying to me, and just, oh my god, it was so nice. I had to reply to one of them like a day later because I couldn't put together the words, and also I was tearing up when I was reading it, and then as I was starting to reply, I was tearing up because he's just been the best. It's Stassi Haropoulos. I'll just call him out. He's the best. So when I replied to him, I was like, I'm so sorry it took me so long to get back to you, but I couldn't read your email without tearing up. And he was like, no, I was tearing up too, so it's fine. But yeah, it'll be great. I'm excited. And I still work in this new job. My main responsibility is basically to reach out to the media, send press releases, have these relationships. So it's great because I still get to continue my relationships with everyone here, as well as other, our sister company, The Republican, Mass Live. I just spoke with someone from Mass Live yesterday who just heard the news, and she was like, oh, I'm so excited. We're still going to get to work together. So it's nice because while I'm saying goodbye to the Reminder to a degree, to this building, to the physical working here, still working with everyone. Yeah. So that's really nice. But so now we can talk about you. So what's new?
I mean, not much. I'm just been.
You're going snowmobiling.
I am going snowmobiling on Friday, so that'll be fun. That was why. That was my scheduling conflict, so I couldn't do the interview with Puppolo
Puppolo,
on Friday, but that's totally fine. I haven't gone snowmobiling in a couple of years, so I'm definitely really looking forward to getting back out on the trails.
Yeah, that'll be so fun. Is it supposed to be cold where you're going? I'm sure.
Yeah, I think so. Initially, I think the temperature was going to be a little higher on Friday, but it seems like as the week's gone on, the temperature's gotten lower. But we go up to, me and my dad go up to Woodford, Vermont usually. Sometimes we'll go a little further north in Vermont, but that's where we go typically.
I don't really have a concept of where that is.
It's like, I don't really either, to be honest with you, but it's like maybe 45 minutes past like when you get out of Massachusetts.
Oh,
it's not too far out.
Yeah, no, that's not bad at all. Nice.
Yeah.
Well, that'll be really fun. You guys, I'm sure, will have a great time. Hopefully the weather stays.
Yeah. I've been
decent.
keeping up on Facebook, and the trails look decent. So
nice. Well, that'll be a blast.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm looking forward to it. It's been a long time, and I'm ready to get back out there.
And a nice long weekend too. It's nice.
That's what I was kind of trying to hope, because there was some question of if we were going to go Thursday or Friday. But I was like, let's please go Friday.
Yeah. Don't make me work on Friday. Have one day off, then work again.
I mean, I'd be working from home anyway, so it's not really. Yeah.
Still
the biggest
No, it's
issue,
still nice, though. You'll have a nice long weekend. Good for you. That's great.
One last thing I have to say about Payton before she goes. She's just been really like a special person and like a great leader to all of us here. So it's going to be hard to fill that void, but we're going to do it, and we're going to
It won't be hard.
Take what we've learned, and
it'll be great. And I just feel like anyone who steps into this role is just set up for success.
Yeah, and I feel like with us, too, like they're going to be surrounded by people that know what's going to have to be done.
The team is so wonderful. Everyone is so, to a degree, everyone's so self-sufficient, knows what they're doing. We don't have anyone on our staff who's new.
Yep.
I think the last hire
The latest hire on our staff.
Tyler?
No, Cliff. He was
really?
like a few
Cliff
months
was
after
Tyler?
that, yeah.
Oh my gosh, and Cliff is, of course, Cliff. He knows everything.
I mean, he's a wealth
phenomenal.
of experience.
Yeah. But even our newest hire is at least over 2 years, almost 3 years with us. So everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone understands what we do here, their jobs. So, yeah, I feel really good about leaving in the sense of I know that life's going to go on here. Everybody's going to get their jobs done.
You're leaving it in good hands, I think.
I'm not in a place where I'm like stressed going, how are they going to do this? That's not a concern of mine at all. My only concern is just writing down, remembering all the little things that I do that are it's just the work that is silent and untracked and just like, oh, you have to send this one thing once a month at the end of the month on the last Friday, or just, little things like that that can easily be missed but actually make an impact. That's the stuff that I am trying to keep track of, because for a brief period of time we won't obviously have someone who's looking at that. Yeah. So it's for you guys for a little bit, for you all to worry about, but it won't be a big deal. It's all normal stuff that's, not super challenging. So everyone's going to do great, but it is sad. This is my last time on the mic, so I will miss being a part of this for sure. Of course, you never know.
I was going to say, maybe we could have you as a guest someday.
Yeah, maybe you want me as a guest. I don't know what could be going on, but we certainly, I'm sure they would be interested in that. I talked a lot with them about just different media opportunities and things like that. So you never know. Maybe I will be back on the mic, but I'll certainly be listening. I obviously already subscribed to the podcast, so it'll be kind of fun. We had a planning session a couple weeks ago for the podcast for the new year, and we're making a lot of changes that are very positive. Yeah. We've got some new equipment, which is awesome. So the sound quality.
We don't have the cables, unfortunately, but the rest of it is all good to go.
So the new equipment we're not using right now, but we do have some new equipment on the way. We'll be having some changes there. And then as far as quality of the podcast, we've done a lot of talking about the big topics of the week or the past 2 weeks. We're kind of pivoting from that a little bit, while we still, I think, I'm saying we as if I'll be here. It's going to be
without Payton,
it's going to be a really hard habit to break, but they will be doing a lot of one-on-one interviews with people, scheduling those throughout, which is great. We've been mixing that in a bit, but now moving forward,
it's kind of going to be the main format. We're going to be bringing you different issues. Like we're talking to Puppolo today, or not today, Chris is talking to Puppolo on Friday about bail reform legislation that's been kind of churning in the House and Senate for a decade almost at this point. So that'll be an interesting topic, but we're going to be, we have stuff planned for the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade, election coverage, because there's 7 mayors that are going to be up for re-election this year. Yeah. So
I think it's going to be a great year for this podcast. And my goal for all of you is right now they're doing, is it the Valley Advocates one? Because they do reader raves through the Republican, but it feels a little bit incestuous for, I don't know if they have a podcast category, a local podcast category. But I believe the Valley Advocate does for their Best of the Valley. Is that what it's called? I should have looked this up. I always do this. But in any case, I know that there are a couple of different local best of type of things that have a podcast category. And I almost typed in So That Reminds Me as a write-in, but I knew obviously that we wouldn't be getting it with a write-in. But they have some really great ones that are up there right now. I know the Fabulous 413 is nominated for one of them. So my goal for this podcast that I will no longer be on, but you can all strive for it, and hopefully listeners will vote for it, is to have So That Reminds Me be one of the most listened or whatever best of podcasts next year.
That's a lofty goal, but I think we're going to try to do our best to live up to it.
I really think with this year's plan,
I
think that plan with some marketing, you will be, everyone here except for me will be in great shape. So that's my goal for everyone here. And whether they want it or not, I'll be promoting behind the scenes.
Telling everybody. Going in a new office, that's a whole new group of people we could
There's like 160 people there. Should I just be like...
You should just
walk in and
wherever
put a
your
reminder.
Desk is, like if you have an office, maybe put on your door, listen to So That Reminds Me.
I'll put a QR code.
Yeah.
Like as you walk in, you must scan, download.
Yep.
Oh, gosh, I think they'd hate me immediately. So I'm not going to do that. But I will, of course, make my plugs where I can.
Yeah.
Because obviously I so strongly believe in everything that the Reminder does and the work that we do here. So I will be carrying that no matter what, no matter where I go. I'll be touting the work that is done within these walls for sure.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, on that note, now that we've taken forever,
over to Chris and
let's get into the interview.
All right. Well, I am here. This is Chris Mazza, and I am joined by Tyler Garnett, who's acting as our producer today. And we are here with State Rep Angelo Puppolo, who's here to talk about some bail reform legislation that he has again refiled. Well, thank you for joining us today. And if you wouldn't mind just kind of introducing a little bit about what you're trying to accomplish with this bill.
All right. Well, first of all, for Chris and Tyler, obviously honored to be here. Happy to talk about this particular bill. And so we filed this before. I've been working closely with Mayor Sarno on this, and he's really been a big push behind this proposed legislation. And it's essentially, it's pretty simple. I mean, in theory, a little complicated to get it through the various degrees, in the House. But essentially what we want to do is reform bail here in Massachusetts just to allow the prosecutor, the district attorney, to appeal low bail. And that's the basic sense of it. I mean, there's a lot of details in there. There's a lot of things that, we put in there to safeguard, the reason why we need to do this. But again, we've seen habitual offenders that come out on low bails, excessively low bails. And I think, the mayor, talks about it all the time. We see the crime here in the city of Springfield, as well as across, not only, this county, but, across the Commonwealth. And a lot of times it's repeat offenders. Somebody that just gets out in the morning and they're back in the afternoon, committing, similar crimes. So what we're trying to do is basically put another tool in the prosecutor's toolbox that allows, under certain circumstances, again, not every time, but when there's habitual offenders, it's serious crimes. And when the prosecutor, it's not up to politicians, it's not up to the mayor, it's up to the district attorney to say, look, we feel that this bill has been set too low. So we want to have, within a business day, it's not excessive amount of time, we want to have the option to be able to appeal a low bail to Superior Court and have a judge relook at it and say, look, maybe it is a little low. so we can keep that person. Again, we all know that bail's not, to be a deterrent to hold people, right? It's to make sure they come back. We understand that. I'm a lawyer. I know that. I've had discussions with many other lawyers in the American Civil Liberties Union and all of that stuff. And, we're not being punitive here. What we want to do is be protective. And I think that's critically important. And again, within a short period of time, it allows this proposal would allow the Commonwealth to be able to appeal a low bail. Very similar to like a defendant that can appeal what they feel might be an excessively high bail. So when a district court judge puts on, an excessively high bail, which, doesn't happen that often, but when they feel that it's excessive, they go to Superior Court essentially immediately, and that judge relooks at it. And if that particular, Superior Court judge feels that that bail was excessive or a little bit high, they lower it. So what we're looking to do is even a playing field.
All right, so we'll get a little bit more deeper into this, some of the nuts and bolts and some of the history of this legislation after a few brief messages.
Prime, your guide to your best life after age 50, is changing for 2025. All the news and information you've come to rely on and more will now be coming to you in a bigger, better edition of Prime every quarter. Look for the first new Prime of 2025, our Wellness Edition, at your favorite pickup location in January. And if the Prime audience is the target market for your goods and services, reach out to Sales Manager Scott Green at 525-6695 to grow with us.
We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news.
All right, and we're back. We're talking with Representative Puppolo about the bail reform legislation that he has refiled. And I think it's important for people to understand sort of the history here. This is something that has been talked about for quite some time. So if you could speak a little bit to, obviously, this is a refile of legislation that you've been working on for some time. So if you could talk a little bit about the history of this and kind of why it's gotten hung up and why it's taken this long.
Well, this again, we've been working very closely with Mayor Sarno, and he was the person originally a few years back that brought, to the attention of the delegation here in Springfield, District Attorney Gallooni and others. We felt that, especially the mayor felt that, the issue of having a habitual offender being released, out on bail excessive amounts of times with low bail just to commit and continue to commit, these types of crimes. We've seen it. It's like a revolving door. Again, the reason why we've seen many times where there's been crimes that are committed, say, in the morning, that particular defendant gets set out on a very low bail and commits sometimes even more heinous crimes. Unfortunately, we've seen that, right? We've seen even more heinous crimes in the afternoon or the next day when they've been out on bail. So again, what we're looking to do is put a tool in the prosecutor's toolbox that allows them under certain protective circumstances to be able to appeal a low bail just to make the public safe and to continue on, at least, again, as a deterrent. Again, I just want to be clear about it. We all know, again, I said it before, I'm an attorney. We all know that, bail is not supposed to be punitive. It's not supposed to be meant to keep somebody incarcerated. But there are times, and we're seeing more and more, when, bail, needs to be set at a higher level. One, to make it harder for these particular defendants to get out, right? But also to make it, an opportunity for them maybe to think twice. If they're out on a higher bail and they commit another crime, the next, bail may be harder and may be tougher, and it may be, make them think a little bit before they do that particular next crime, and again, keep society more safer. It's been filed. We've had some, issues relative to trying to gain some traction on it, honestly. There's a lot of colleagues in the area that embrace this, and there's some across the Commonwealth that don't like it, right? I mean, and, we have organizations and groups that say, again, the fact that, look at, bail shouldn't be punitive, right? But, at the end of the day, what we're looking to do is, we shouldn't even be here, for the most part. If we had bail that was not set excessively, low on a regular basis, we wouldn't have to do this. But we need to do it, in my opinion, and I think in the mayor's opinion, to protect the public and to keep these habitual offenders. Again, it's not everybody. We're not saying every case that we feel the judge set a low bail on that we're going to have the, district attorney appeal. We're not looking to do that. We get that, right? And a vast majority of people will have their bail, whatever it's set at, no ramifications, no issues. It's just in those very small amount of times that but again, as the district attorney feels, that, it is a little low for this type of crime, but also for this type of offender that is prone to, reoffend. And we've seen it in the past. There's a track record. There's a pattern. So at least we need to have a record to go up to Superior Court and have that judge take a fresh look at it.
So does this legislation set some kind of threshold that when prosecutors are looking at it, they would meet to bring forward an appeal, or some kind of guideline to, these are the kinds of things that basically not quite a checklist, but something that guides them to say, this is why we would want to appeal this bail? And would it be for, when you're mentioning habitual offenders, are we talking violent offenders, or are there guidelines as to what kind of offenses we're looking at here?
Yeah, that's a great question, Chris. But we have some standards in there, but we didn't want to put like a bright line test in there. Mm-hmm. We talked about this. I've talked about this with the House Counsel, my House Counsel and House of Representatives. We really didn't want to put a bright line checklist on there, right? So we wanted to leave that discretion up to the district attorney when they feel, based upon the record of that individual, based upon the crime that was committed, the situation of that crime, right? There's a lot of situations that go in there, and that's why I said at the onset that, it's not us, it's not me, it's not the mayor, it's not the legislators that are looking to, to keep people behind bars. We want to have this as an option. And again, the DA may never use this option, and there may be cases when the DA should have used it, right? And maybe we find out subsequently that there may be a repeat offense from somebody that's out on bail. But I think it's we want to leave. We don't want to tie the hands of the district attorney or the assistant district attorney so much that there's certain criteria that one needs to be checked, but also could be disputed, right? So there might be some constitutionality issues if we had a fine line checklist that says, okay, under this circumstance, if 1, 2, 3 is met, we didn't want to leave. We want to leave it up to the district attorney at his or her discretion, or the assistant district attorney at his or her discretion, to be able to look at each individual case and decide that that's the path that they need to take to protect the public, and sometimes even to protect that that defendant. And again, there are orders out there, right? There could be protective custody. Judges can issue protective custody orders, keep that person, incarcerated until trial. We're not saying that doesn't happen, but we are saying that we've been seeing an increase, and the mayor can attest to it, in Springfield, Dominic can attest to it, that we've seen an increase, and at least in Hampden County, at least in Springfield District Court, where we're seeing these types of criminals. There's no other word for it. It's these types of criminals, alleged criminals, if you want, but these types of individuals that go out, commit additional crimes so fast as soon as they're out on bail, and it's like they don't care. Right? There's no ramifications. Some get set out on their own personal recognizance. Some people don't have to put anything up. So, I think, again, in those kind of situations, I think it's up to the district attorney to be able to use, their insight, right? They're in a courtroom day in and day out. I'm a lawyer. I don't practice that much. I don't do that much criminal law. But, I think their expertise is in that area. And then again, don't forget, if they do appeal this, right, if we do pass this law and the district attorney has the ability to appeal a low bail, that defendant is going to have a lawyer there representing him, right, him or her. So that defendant will continue to have counsel, obviously, and whatever happens up in that Superior Court, there's going to be, the ability for that defense attorney to argue one way or the other. But at least we're on the record, right? At least we're saying, look, you know what, at the end of the day, more times than not, I think, it should be looked at if there's a opportunity to put a reasonable higher bail to sort of keep the people out of that revolving door sort of syndrome. I think it'll be public safety enhancement, but I also think it'll be good for the criminal justice system as well.
All right, and we'll be back with a little bit more with Representative Puppolo after a few more brief messages.
Are you hearing wedding bells? Take a deep breath. Go Local Magazine has your back. Our wedding special section is your one-stop resource to the best in local photographers, caterers, florists, venues, and so much more. Get inspired by the couples who share their special day with us. Then check out the experts who created their perfect event. It's all here and all at your fingertips in Go Local. And are you an advertiser looking to reach local couples planning a wedding? Contact Sales Manager Scott Green at 525-6695 to be part of Go Local Weddings.
What's the forecast for our region for 2025? You live here, so you want to know, and we've done the research. You'll find insights into the economic, educational, social, and cultural expectations for Western Mass in this year's Outlook, the Republican and Reminder Publishing's in-depth guide to the potential shifts and emerging trends in Hampden and Hampshire counties. Look for Outlook in your local Reminder in March. Advertisers, want to be part of the year's Best Read Special section? Contact Sales Manager Scott Green at 525-6695.
And we're back. Representative, one of the things that I think may be a little bit of a concern for people from an operational standpoint is the wheels of justice often turn very slowly as it is. Is there concern about this, for lack of a better term, jamming things up even more than it already is in our court system?
That's a good question too, Chris, but I think if you look at the language in the bill, we have a very short turnaround, right? So in other words, if the district attorney, the prosecutor, feels that there is a situation that requires a review, right? If bail's set too low and they feel that, their criteria that they use feels that bail is too low, they have a day, right, or so to get right up into Superior Court. Defendants, if they feel bail is too high, they immediately, can go up to Superior Court. So this is not going to, delay any justice. There's judges that are available. It's a 5-10 minute hearing at the most part, right? It's not going to be a big deal. And we're not saying, look at, the district attorney's got to have a quick turnaround here, right? We're not saying, well, that person's out freed for 5 days or 2 days or 3 days or 6 weeks, right? And come back and say, well, boy, we had that arraignment, 3 weeks ago. Let's bring that defendant back because we feel bail's too low. That opportunity, that ship has sailed, right? So at that time frame. So we're looking for a quick turnaround. We're looking for some, sort of responsibility in a quick, sort of time frame. So again, this is something that, bail's set. If it's set too high right now, right, the defendant can go immediately into Superior Court and have that argument with that Superior Court judge. If the bill is set too low, we want to have that same standard. We want to be able, within a reasonable period of time, the bill says 1 day, essentially to be able to have that appeal in front of a Superior Court judge, which is right there. And I'm assuming that probably it's going to be, real quick. In other words, say you're a district court, especially here in Hampden County, you're on, the first floor, bring them up to the, upstairs of Superior Court. And, the second floor Superior Court judge and justice, can hear that sidebar, can hear that in an empty courtroom. I don't think that would clog anything up or delay anything at all. And that decision will be made right there, right? Mm-hmm. We're not looking for immediate, holds. We're not looking for, unchecked sort of process here. The judge is going to hear that argument from both the prosecutor and the defense attorney and make the decision. He or she's either going to uphold that low bail or going to say, this might be a case where I'm going to raise it. And I think it's reasonable. I do think it's reasonable, again, for twofold. One, to keep the public safe, but also to have these defendants and all these, these alleged criminals think a little bit more, right? Say, if I get, caught, right, I'm going to have some consequences, right? Look what's going on in other states like California, for example, where they're letting, they're not even charging people, right? So it breeds this type of, we're talking apples and oranges, but that mentality, right, it breeds criminal activity. So if you know that you can go into a store and steal X amount of dollars worth of stuff and nobody's going to stop you, nobody's going to detain you, nobody's going to prosecute you, what's going to stop you from doing that crime, right? So again, if you look at it on that sort of, related segment, if you have no consequences to committing crimes, and i.e. here, if there's no worry about a high bail being set, you're just going to keep committing crimes. So at least if you have that in the back, and again, it's not going to be every defendant, but at least if you have that in the toolbox, maybe a defendant thinks twice before they say, you know what, yeah, maybe it's not worth doing it because this time I might be held, or I might have a higher responsibility for a bond. And again, if it's a severe, very heinous or very violent crime, the likelihood of getting out on bail is probably thin anyhow, or that bond or that bail is going to be set tremendously high. So if you do it once, right, and you get, you're out on that bail, and you know that you can't post another bail or you can't get another bond or another family member is not going to put a car or a house on the line for you to come back, you may think twice about committing another crime. Let me deal with this one crime and then, stay off the sort of path of law enforcement, at least while I'm on, out on bail on this particular crime.
Now, currently, for those of us who are unfamiliar with the way the system works, is there some kind of guidance that judges follow, or is it more at their discretion and based off of case history or precedent that they're familiar with? How does it work setting those initial bails?
Yeah, judges do have a lot of discretion, not only in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, but really across the country, setting bail, right? So, there are some guidelines, that maybe, a judge may go by, but for the most part, it's experience, right? It's the type of the crime, it's the type of the defendant, the likelihood that that person is going to flee, right? So, that's pretty much the standard. So if you have somebody that's got, a lot of money, has a lot of access, maybe passport, and the ability to, flee, that's what it's all about, right? We want to be able to, the judicial system wants to be able to make sure that those criminals come back. And that's what bail is all about, right? It's not to hold them. That's why I said at the beginning. It's not meant to be punitive. In a sense, bail is just to be able to assure the court that that person will come back. The harder the crime, tougher the crime, the higher the bail, right, originally. And some people don't get out on bail, right? So if you commit murder or something like that, it's highly unlikely that you are going to be out on bail, right? But again, there's other ways that they can restrict you. They can take your passport away. They can set a higher bail. Again, if you post that bond or a family member posts that bond or that bail money and you don't show up, they lose that, right? So that's a consequence of that, right? So again, bail basically, it's a sliding scale depending on the severity of the crime, the record of that individual, and the likelihood of flight. That's the biggest, sort of factor. But what we want to do is change that just slightly to be able to look in cases of, low bail, right? To have the prosecutor, the district attorney, the ADA be able to go to the Superior Court and say, look, maybe this person's not a flight risk, but this person's a habitual offender. This person's likely to recommit. We'd like to have a little higher bail here. Not that it's going to be so much that person, can't make it. And I want to be clear with that. I don't think, that's not the point. The point is we're not saying, look, if a judge comes on and puts a $500 bail on a habitual offender and the Commonwealth thinks it's low, we don't want them to go to the Superior Court and ask for a $50,000 or $100,000 bail, right? That's not reasonable. But just a higher amount that makes it a little more difficult for either that person or that family member to post that bail or that bond. So again, once they're out on bail, they got to think twice. If I go back in front of this judge, the bail's going to be at least as high, maybe higher. I don't have that access. So you know what? I'm not going to commit the crime. That's not going to deter everybody. Some people probably won't care. But at least it's the ability for the prosecutor to have that in the toolbox and for a defendant, alleged criminal, to know, look, these are the consequences. And, I might not be able to get out as easy. You're still probably going to get out. I think that's the important point. We're not going to keep you. We don't want to say, look, if you commit this crime, we're not going to say you need to be held. We want to make sure that you are accountable, and the only way we can do it is with a higher bail.
Sure. Just a couple other quick things. I think one of the pieces of feedback that we've heard on this is maybe that all defendants are not created equal, and certainly in terms of background and in terms of means. So while not designed to be punitive, at times the bail being set at a certain point is inadvertently punitive to certain communities with less means. So that, coupled with this next question, is obviously the goal is to prevent habitual offenders. What else is happening on the state level to try to help the situation and prevent and create an environment where it's less likely that we'll have habitual offenders through more opportunity and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, two great questions. I mean, the first part of it, essentially saying, look, that's why we don't want to have a checklist of criteria. Mm-hmm. Okay, we want to have the district attorney, the ADA, have that option. They may not exercise it all the time. They may feel that person can or can't make it. Whatever criteria they use, we're not getting into that. So that takes a little bit, I believe, of that sort of, disproportionate, if you will, effect out of that with different segments of the community. District attorneys are elected too, right? So they know, judges in Massachusetts are appointed, a little bit different. It's a political process. But nonetheless, they've got to be cognizant of that, what you said, right? So they don't want to be, too, disproportionate to one segment of the community or one income class or the other, but that's why we want to leave it up to them, and I think that's fair, right? So there might be some times when they feel that whatever criteria it might be, it might not apply to this particular person because X, Y, and Z, and we're not going to get into that. We're not going to get into the mind of the prosecutor, but we do feel that it should be an option. What other ways to deter it? I mean, the Sheriff of Hampden County, Nick Cochee, is doing a tremendous job with rehabilitation. Sheriff Ash did it for years. So we do have programs out there for rehabilitation, right? We want to give people second chances. We want to give people the opportunity to go out and work. There are programs that when you're close to being, out, if you will, if you're in a house of correction, you can go out and do community service. You can do different things. So, there's behavioral health situations that we treat. We spent a lot of money in the state to be able to have these, houses of corrections and even prisons and jails to be able to, treat, the mental illnesses if there are some drug addictions, whatever. We try to go back to that root, right? Sort of the stem of the problems, right? Now, not everybody, comes from the same sort of, background, whether it's mental illness, drug illness, whether it's just a, kleptomaniac kind of thing if they're doing stealing, if it's just part of that, the DNA that wired up, or if it's just, a bad streak or a bad day or, depraved heart, whatever it may be, we do rely on the House of Corrections and our sheriffs, especially Nick Cochee's doing a tremendous job, trying to bring people back, right, into the public, right? It's not that whole mentality of years and years and decades ago of just lock them up, throw away the key. It doesn't work, right? We all know most of the people, especially everybody in the House of Corrections serving under 2.5 years at some point is going to get out, right, of jail. So we need to incorporate that. We need to anticipate those people coming back into society and be productive members of society. I mean, I work closely with the sheriff here, Sheriff Cochee, and really other sheriffs across the Commonwealth. We all do, and we hear a lot of success stories. A tremendous amount of people that have had a troubled past, if you will, have had some run-ins with the law, but and went to the House of Correction, and whether they found a program there, opportunity to get their degree, right, an education, religious, turnaround, whatever the case may be, there are opportunities. And again, not everybody will avail themselves to that, but that's what we've been doing. We're trying to make the rehabilitation a big focus on that. So I think that's a big key to that, right? So we're not in that situation of having somebody back in front of a judge. We want to prevent that, yes. But, I mean, unfortunately, when somebody keeps coming back in a revolving door, we've got to have some stop gap there. And I think this appeal, to a low bail is a good start.
All right. Well, the bill is called An Act Relative to the Commonwealth's Right to Appeal Bail Decisions, and it was refiled recently by our representative, Angelo Puppolo, and we thank you, Representative, for being with us today. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we wrap up?
No, I mean, I just think, it's a great discussion. And again, I mean, we're working closely with the mayor and other law enforcement officials to try to shore this up. And, we've got a lot of support Sure, we got some detractors, but, it's like any bill. So we're working through it. We're doing what we can. But, again, I think the bottom line is myself, we're not looking to be punitive. We're not looking to be, a hardcore lock them up, throw away the key. What we're looking to do is in the instances when there's a problem, when there's a habitual offender, when we know the likelihood is greatly increased that somebody is going to reoffend, at least have the option. And we're not saying the district attorney is going to win every time, right? I mean, the district attorney, even if we pass this bill, right, still has to go and argue, right, in front of a Superior Court judge. We may pass the bill, and we may never get a positive ruling, right? It's up to that Superior Court judge. So at the end of the day, there are checks and balances. We're not saying, hey, a low bail, automatically the district attorney can now set the price. No, there's a process. Go in front of the Superior Court judge. That judge will have the determination, and then at least there's a second look, a fresh eyes to look at it. And if they decide to go in a higher direction, fine. Who knows? They could even decide to go in a lower direction right at that point. But I do think it's a positive bill. I do want to thank Mayor Sarno for his continued advocacy on this. He's been a tremendous leader and a tremendous asset, not only for this but throughout the community. So thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for taking the time to discuss it with us and giving our listeners a little bit more understanding of what you're trying to do here.
No problem. Thank you. Great to be here.
That wraps another episode of So That Reminds Me. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again with another episode in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.